Hello, the objective of our presentation is to predict the revenue of a movie. Let's start by taking a look at the factors that affect the box office performance of a movie. Some things that come to our mind are: first, budget of a movie. Film industry is like the stock market. You have to spend money to make money. Second, amount of advertising done for a movie. Third, season in which the movie is released. Fourth, cast and director also play an important role in attracting people to the theaters. Finally, other factors that affect the box office performance are reputation of a studio, genre of the movie, quality of plot, social media popularity, and critics' reviews. For our project, we will be exploring budget, advertising, seasonality, and social media popularity. We follow the following steps in order to predict the revenue of the movie. First, we use the IMDB movie dataset for the budget and social media information. Second, this dataset did not contain the studio and release data information for seasonality, so we scrape the data in Python using APIs from the website omdbapi.com. Third, we used stock price of the studio as a surrogate for the advertising information, and we scraped that from Yahoo Finance. Then we merged the datasets on Hive and built a linear regression model and used Tableau for visualization. Let's explore seasonality a bit more in detail. There are two prime movie release seasons. First is the summer blockbuster release season, when studios release their large budget movies. This generally begins in May and runs through the end of July. This is a period when the studio make the most of their money, which keeps them in business the rest of the year, and also indirectly pays for the smaller, limited distribution prestige films that won't make the kind of money the blockbusters did, but will attract multiple award nominations. Second is the Oscar bait season, when the studio release their prestige films generally begins around mid-October and runs through end of December. The dump months and average months are months when there are lowered commercial and critical expectations for films. The studios are obligated to release but believed to have limited commercial prospects. Releases during these times primarily include films that would have been released at other times of year had they performed better at test screenings.
The next variable that we explore in detail is the advertising. The amount of advertising support for a movie is not perfectly known prior to launch. The impact of advertising expenditures on final movie revenues and profits will only be known once the opening weekend has passed. The more the studio spend on advertising, the more is the awareness of the movie. This affects not only the opening weekend but also the stock price of the studio due to the expectations built around the movie. A study shows that studios spend about 90% of their advertising budget 3 to 4 weeks before the release of the movie. So, monitoring the stock price of movie can capture information about promotions and expectations from the movie to be released. To start our analysis, we filtered our dataset to predict revenue of the movie. We initially had IMDB 5000 movie dataset from Kaggle, which contained information for many movies released in the 1900s and 2000 from all over the world. Over 75% of the movie's information was of US, so we drilled down one level to analyze only the movies that were produced in the United States. This was done to have a consistent language and avoid currency conversion bias in the analysis. We also observed that most of the movie's data was from the years 2012 to 2016. So we drilled down one level deeper to analyze only movies and to avoid the time value of money issue. In order to be able to attribute advertising to stock price, we had to use the stock price of only one studio. So we narrowed it down to Warner Brothers since this studio produced the most number of movies in our dataset.
We started by doing an exploratory data analysis on our data set to see relationships between various dependent and independent variables. This correlation matrix depicts the correlation between various variables. For example, looking at the IMDB score versus duration, we see a high correlation. We observe that budget is highly correlated with gross. Higher the budget, more is the revenue generated. Also, higher the IMDb rating of a movie, higher is the revenue. As hypothesized earlier, blockbuster season has the highest average grossing movies. Number of critic for reviews and number of Facebook likes also seem to impact revenue. Higher the number of critics for reviews and more the number of Facebook likes, higher is the gross. Duration and number of IMDb users also affects revenue. Movies with duration between 80 to 130 minutes fare pretty well, and gross of a movie increases as the number of user reviews increases. After exploring the variables, we built a linear regression model and found the following variables to be significant: budget, stock price, director, and movie Facebook likes. The adjusted R-squared obtained is 0.77. So this means that the variables mentioned above explain the variance in gross by 77%. As we can see, the budget negatively affects the revenue in the presence of other variables. Director Facebook likes positively affects revenue in the presence of other variables. Next, let's look at the limitations and challenges. The limitations which we had were factors such as plot, cast might have an effect on gross. The data set which we had was not pretty exhaustive and up to date. The advertising expenditures was also unavailable for better analysis. The challenges which we faced were scraping the data using API was challenging initially. Establishing the connection between Hadoop and Hive was pretty difficult. Merging the data on Hive required standardization of variables. Based on our analysis, we found that budget, stock price, director, and movie Facebook likes were found to be significantly affecting the revenue of a movie. For a more accurate analysis, we could consider including factors such as movie plot, information about directors or casts, previous success such as acclaimed awards, advertising expenditure, etc. Thank you.